Welcome to the Toronto International Film Festival, Day 6, and today's screening of The Two Popes by Fernando Meirelles. To begin with, we would like to acknowledge that today's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. This film is eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Awards, so I encourage you all to vote at tiff.net/vote. We would like to thank Netflix Inc. for kindly providing us with this film. Please join me in welcoming back to the festival director Fernando Meirelles.
Continue. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, before anything, I would like to thank Netflix. They're really supportive. It was really a great experience, so thank you very much. The producers from Right Back Production in LA, my producer Tracy Seward from the UK, with whom I'm working again. It's like a sister for me. Yesterday, the actors, Jonathan Pryce was here, but he's in a play in New York, so he had to leave yesterday. And Anthony Hopkins, he really wanted to come, but he has a back pain. So during all the week, he was saying, no, I think I can go, no, I can't, and finally he couldn't come, so it's a pity. He's really supporting the film. It's a shame he didn't come. And about the film, well, you know, I'm not very optimistic about our future. I mean, really, there's something really out of place in the world today. That's what I think most of you are feeling the same. There's really, I'm not talking about Trump or the crazy guy who's the president of Brazil right now. It's really, yeah, our future is really in danger, I think. And Pope Francis is one of the main voices in the world today, or one of the few voices that are really trying to build bridges, as anyone else is building walls, not only physical walls, but economic walls, technological walls. I think we're really going towards a dystopian world, which is the ones we love to picture in films. We're building, that's what we're building, I'm afraid. Anyway, because I like how Pope Francis sees the world. He sees us as a brotherhood, he sees us as a humankind, not only as nationalities, you know, and I like that. I think that's the way we should go. I wanted to know more about him. I was intrigued to know where his idea came from, and so the script came. I was invited to direct the film, and it was a brilliant script, as you'll see, and I'm here. I won't talk much because we have a Q&A, so thank you very much for coming. I hope you like it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be embarrassed, please. Thank you.
Okay, we're done. Thank you. Can't get any better than that. Let's go.
Before I open up the floor for questions, I'd just like to know a little bit about where you actually were able to film, what you had access, what you didn't have access to, where the locations were.
Yeah, well, we haven't used any Vatican's facilities, but so we shot around Rome in different parts. It's very easy to find gorgeous palaces in Rome, and we shot in Argentina as well. And the Sistine Chapel, we built our own because we couldn't use theirs. So our is 5 centimeters bigger, so it's the biggest Sistine Chapel in the world. It's true.
If anyone has a question, I'd ask that you raise your hand very high. Yes, over here. So I'll repeat the question. Will you be getting a private audience with the Pope?
Yeah, no, we won't. But I wish he watched the film, but I'm not sure he will. And if he does it, I don't think he will tell us that he did. So, no, it's just, of course, I would love to have him watching next to me, but it won't happen.
Fernando actually has shaken Francis's hand and told him about this film, though.
Yeah, I went through one of those ceremonies in the Vatican that he shakes hands, like 40 people around, and we shook hands. And I told him, we had like 2 seconds. I said, I'm working on a film with you. We have Anthony Hopkins, Jonathan Pryce. It's about your life. He said, great, and just moved on. Couldn't care less. So that was my contact with him. He really, I don't care.
Yes, any others? Up top, sorry, forgot about up top. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
With the casting, did you have both Anthony and Jonathan in mind when you were creating the film or creating it, or how did the casting come about?
So the question is if he had both Anthony and Jonathan in mind when he was creating the film, or how the casting came about? Yeah,
well, my first thought was Jonathan, and it's an obvious choice, because if you Google the Pope, you see Jonathan's face on Google. There's several, it's true, there's a lot of photos of the Pope and Jonathan. So, of course, I knew him from Brazil and other film films, but I wasn't very aware of his recent films. So I watched some of his films, and then I saw an interview with him. And he was very humble and very funny. He has the same kind of energy that the Pope has. So I said, wow, this guy not only looks like the Pope, but he has the same kind of feeling that the Pope. And I decided that he should be our man. Of course, there was other possibilities, but I was always said, no, this is our guy. And I think I was right, because there's only there's another coincidence. Yeah. I'm so happy that he was able to be recognized. Now, I mean, he's getting good reviews, and I'm so happy for him. And he has a problem in his knees, the same knees that Pope Francis has. So they walk in the same way. They have the same kind of, because they have the same kind of pain, which, I mean, and Tony Hopkins, of course, we had the list that comes, like some photos of other actors, and I had worked with him before. He's extraordinary, and he's very rational, he's an intellectual, and I thought, I mean, his mind would be a good mind for Benedict. He's very, I mean, I don't know if you are aware of that, but he's really, I mean, he reads, and he's really philosophy, and he's really serious in his work. I mean, he goes line by line, the meaning of each line and what this refers to. And I mean, I would get long emails that some of them I couldn't understand because I never read what he reads. I mean, I was really impressed.
Yes, question over here.
I commend you all. I loved the film. I didn't get to see it in Telluride, but I got to see it here, so I was very happy I did. This is a question for the screenwriter. I loved how you balanced it with humor. I was just wondering what that process was like. Was it based on interviews between the two popes, or was it just a kind of, was that an artistic choice to just kind of make them more relatable?
So the question for the screenwriter is his use of humor in the script, and if that was an artistic choice or to make the characters more relatable.
Well, thank you for that. I don't consciously put humor into screenplays, but I certainly don't consciously leave it out. And it's my my reading of life, I guess, that in any human interaction there's at least an attempt at humor. So when you're dramatizing people and you want to humanize them, it's often humor is very revealing of someone's, you know, deeper qualities. And I always think it's that if a leader doesn't have humor, we're all in very deep trouble. Humor is a mark of intelligence. If you don't have humor, then it's almost a disability. So I don't leave it out. And Francis is quite famous for loving a joke. So we know that. Benedict, there is no record of him ever laughing. But that in itself is funny. So I thought, oh, there's great potential here for him not getting a joke. And no matter where this movie plays for its rest of its life, the funniest line in this whole thing will be Benedict saying, it's a German joke, it doesn't have to be funny.
Yes, in the middle? So a question is for all three, whether making the film changed your view of the papacy, if you learned a lot more about it than you had known before.
Yeah, in my case, yeah, definitely, because I'm not a religious person. I don't have that background, so I had to study a lot about religion and papacy, and also it changed my view of Pope Francis too, because well, you know, as you see in the film, in Argentina, it was a controversial character before he was named Pope, became Pope. So it was very interesting to get to know his history and his changes. Yeah, it was very interesting for me.
Yeah, I learned everything about, because I knew almost nothing about the Vatican, only what I see in newspaper and this kind of thing. And what, in my view on Benedict changed a lot. In the beginning, when I first read the script, was the bad guy and the good guy. That was very clear for me. And in the end of the process, maybe because of Anthony Hopkins' inputs, I mean, I saw more gray areas, and they're not so different in their beliefs, and they just have different styles. But I really understood that they're not that different as I thought in the beginning. And this is a theme of the film. I mean, trying to see the other and listen to the other, and see that maybe even if you don't agree with them, there's might be some connection, and it happens between me and Pope Benedict. And Francis, I mean, I was a big fan of Francis, and I'm still a big fan.
Yes.
I would like to ask about your decision not to have us hear Benedict's confession.
So the decision for us not to hear Benedict's full confession.
Well, this came from the script. Actually, we had a bit of his past in the first script. Remember, we had a flashback. But it's really Francis' story, but what's your take on it?
Yes, I thought it was more interesting, rather than the details of it, to suggest the broader conspiracy. The failures were so numerous in terms of the Catholic Church's concealing of facts, and it was endemic. I mean, there was a policy, and it's a very ancient policy. It dates back to 1600s, where it was well known that any of these things had to be dealt with under the veil of secrecy. If he was to give a full and frank confession of all the errors, it would have been, it would have taken the film out into a whole new area. So I thought it was interesting, I thought it was subtle, and I thought it would then speak to the larger issues if we just faded it out and it became a whisper, and you could fill into that, you could place into that space the collective sins of an entire church over decades. So rather than be specific, I hoped it would have a more universal reach. I hope it's not interpreted as trying to sidestep it or make light of it. My intention was the opposite.
But we did have a scene that when he was called for the army, that he's called Nazi, because he was part of the Nazi army, but when he was 14, and he escaped, he ran away from the army. So, but because for months he was there, he's called Nazi, which is not true. He really escaped. He couldn't bear it.
Yes?
I think the script is wonderful, and I think the film is wonderful too, but whatever made you decide that this would be a good subject for a script?
So for the scriptwriter, whatever made you decide that this would be a good subject for a script, for a film?
Well, I was in Rome. You know, this is how some ideas come to you. Often it's a mix of accident and then inspiration. But I happened to be in Rome, a cousin of mine had passed away. My sister texted and said, if you're near a church, go and light a candle. I happened to be in Rome. Finding a church was not a particularly difficult challenge. And I went, oh, well, I'll go straight to the top. I'll go to the Vatican Square. There was an open-air mass. Francis was giving an open-air mass, 50,000 people there. My wife and I, she's German. Her father used to work under Benedict. And she knows a lot more about the outgoing Pope. And I said to her, when's the last time we had 2 popes? And we didn't know the answer. We Googled it. The answer is 500 years, 700 years since a pope resigned. The second question was, what would have made the most traditional pope of the modern era do the most untraditional thing imaginable and resign? And I thought, there's a story here. There's something going on here that will bear scrutiny. And then as a dramatist, you had a conservative, a pronounced arch-conservative, who thinks change is anathema, change is a weakness, change will dilute any institution. And then you had a progressive who said, any institution that isn't dynamic will eventually start failing those they represent, because the world is dynamic, the world is changing. The institution doesn't change to meet changing new needs, then it will start to fail. And I thought, what a wonderful way to discuss the larger conversation in the world right now between those who are stubbornly resistant to any change and those who believe change is not only necessary but overdue. We're all sinners. I have news for you. We're all sinners.
Yes, last question here.
The movie was very much about indifference and apathy.
Yeah.
And what's going on in the world. And was it your intent to say that the church could actually do something
To engage.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the question, she's saying the film is about indifference with the papacy, and was that your intention to say that something could change?
Listen, having been born a Catholic and just hoping something would change within that institution and nothing changing for my entire adulthood. It's like opening a window and waiting for a breeze to blow in and just nothing coming in the window for decades. Francis was just such a breath of fresh air. And he really is trying to actually make the church more relevant. Some people are frustrated that the changes he's making are not great enough. But within the context of this ocean liner, it's very hard to turn an ocean liner around. You have to do it by degrees and take everyone with you. So some of the things he's doing are very profound in the context of this institution.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Fernando, Juan, and Andrew.